Hi, and welcome to another episode. I am Christine, your host, and we are talking all about barbecues and why they can be really tricky for kids who are super selective eaters, right? And that is exactly who we help. We help kids go from fearful eaters to foodies. And it is a transformative process, really, for the whole family. So if you're new to my work and you don't know what level your child is at or what type of help they might need, definitely visit thepickyeaterstest.com to learn what level your child is at and what the next steps to take would be that would provide the most comprehensive help. So today's episode is all about barbecues. So it's really common in the summertime, as we are approaching summer, to have lots of barbecue invitations and lots of cookouts and things. And this can be a really tricky place for our super picky eaters here. It sounds really fun, but if they refuse to eat anything besides crackers, there's usually people there that might be well-meaning relatives making comments, right? It can feel like anything but a good time. So let's talk about the real reasons that barbecues can be very triggering for picky eaters, right? A lot of times there's foods with super strong smells like grilled meats, smoky sauces. So those smells might trigger them to try to escape that area, right? Or avoid being around those smells. Also, just sensory wise, there's a lot going on, right? So if you're at a party, there's usually lots of people, lots of noise. It might be a place they've never been before. So that could be a little bit of sensory overload. So a lot of our kids who are selective eaters, they do have some sensory sensitivities and can be oversensitive in certain areas. And those types of things like environments can exacerbate and make worse those feelings. So they're just like now overwhelmed in addition to not seeing any food that looks familiar or to them. Then there's sometimes that audience of the grandmother or the uncle that's like, come on, just take a bite. They're putting that pressure on them, and there's now people watching them. And, there's just like this, a lot of extra pressure going on, right? So a lot of kids really don't do well with that. And of course, there's just nothing that looks like their foods, right? They're all different barbecue foods, right? So it's not just about being picky. This is really about sensory overload. There's a lack of predictability, and sometimes their deep food fears are really prevalent at this time. So how can we make it better? Okay. What I would suggest is to go in with a plan, right? So that means packing their safe foods or anchor foods, right? Their go-to items that's going to help regulate them. They're going to see it and be like, a life preserver has just been thrown at me. So, familiar cut up fruits, dried snacks, sandwich halves, like whatever, something easy like that, that's easy to pack, that won't spoil. Ideally, even their own plate or utensils can really come in handy. Of course, we want our kids to be flexible, and that is absolutely a goal. But sometimes in an environment where everything is new and unpredictable, having this little tiny space of safety of this is mine, I know this, can really put kids at ease and make the whole day go much smoother. Especially sometimes you just don't know what people are having or what they're serving exactly. So even if your child is more of on the curious side, bringing a backup meal that you sometimes like maybe even not even telling them that it's there. Again, this is really going to be very dependent on what level your child is at. So in our program, we have 3 levels: fearful, stuck, and curious, right? And then of course, well, the last one is like technically the 4th is foodie, but in our program where we're trying to get kids to foodie, those are the 3 main ones. So a kid that's super fearful, you're actually probably going to want to tell them that you have their safe foods, with them, preparing them for what to expect, what foods and smells might be there, where they can go to feel safer. Maybe like coming to you, telling you if they're feeling a little overwhelmed. It could avoid some meltdowns. For a kid who's more on the curious side, bringing a backup meal in a thermos that they don't even know is there, it might allow them some time to look at what's available. They might be curious enough to try something new. And then if they don't, at least you have that backup with you. Okay. Um, you know, if if they're still like very resistant to all new foods, I would definitely bring a backup meal and a snack, depending on how long you're going to be there too, because when you're in the heat, sometimes kids are a little bit different because sometimes they get so hot that they actually don't feel super hungry. And sometimes they get really dehydrated. They're like even more hungry. So you can't like totally predict how they're going to react. So I would just have like a good amount of things, just in case. You also might want to, ahead of time, if you know that this is going to be an issue, to coaching maybe some of the people that you know are going to be there that might be most likely to say something. Honestly, in these parties, sometimes the hardest part isn't the food, it's really the unsolicited advice from others. Right? You might hear like, oh, they'll eat if they're hungry enough, or you just have to be tougher, or one bite isn't going to kill them, or I love this. Well, that's not what my parents did back in the day, So here is your script. Okay. Thank you so much for your concern. We're working with a plan that's really helping right now. And I love your support keeping mealtime pressure free. It'll really help us get further with his progress. Right. If it's hard to say in the moment, you could just say, we're good. Thanks for your input. Right. That works fine too. Okay. Sometimes kids want to be a part of the party and they want to be doing what everyone else is doing, but they know they can't. Those are like the most like heartbreaking ones. They're not just like defiant, but they're like, oh, I wish I could, but I really can't, right? Maybe they can still participate in some way, maybe giving them a job like passing out the napkins or handing plates out. Even having them sit near food sometimes can be a big deal. Exposing them without the pressure is going to build confidence and trust over time. So, I'd rather them walk away having a positive experience at the barbecue than being like, oh, I hate barbecues. It is really tricky, but progress can really look maybe a little bit different than you're anticipating. Some parents think, well, progress would be that they picked up the hamburger and just started to eat it, right? That is way the end goal. And again, I'm not sure where your child is. If they are a fearful eater, they are not going to pick up the hamburger and just try it, okay? It might be touching it with a fork. That might be progress for them. It might be smelling something without gagging. That might be big progress. Or sitting near people who are eating and being calm. That might be amazing progress as well. And we need to really celebrate that. And if you want to plan like a way to get support from this place of they're not eating, they're afraid of food, to foodie, right? Come and join us inside Unlocking Mealtimes inside of our transformation program. That's really all we do is we help parents move their kids from fearful and stuck to foodies. And it's a process. And one of the things we always teach parents is to celebrate these small wins along the way, like touching something, smelling something, sitting near people, because knowing your child's level, you're going to have certain expectations for what fits at that level. Sometimes parents have expectations for what a curious kid or a foodie would do, and their kids are fearful. So there's other things that we need to check off and accomplish before we get to that point. And sometimes people are doing things out of order, and doing things that might make progress go backwards a little even. So it's really important to know your child's level. So if you don't, please visit thepickyEatersTest.com so you could learn the child's level, and it'll give you specific directions about where we suggest you go from there. At that level, this is what we recommend. So summer is like one of the best times to start building a better food routine, because everything is already changed anyway. They're already forced to be somewhat outside of their routines, and be a little bit more flexible. But there's less school stress. There's a chance to make some real progress and lay some great foundations before the busy fall year starts. So again, take our free quiz, the PickyEatersTest.com. Figure out if your child is in the fearful, stuck, or curious stage of food, and get your clear path forward. Okay. Now is the time. So if you're ready to turn things around for good, come join us inside the program, and we will help you understand what your child is experiencing, how to move them from where they are to where you'd like them to be. And within the time frame of a summer, you can really set some, for motivated parents that take a lot of initiative and take a lot of action, you could really set a great foundation for, amazing progress for the fall. So don't delay. Get on that right now. And we hope to see you inside the program. But if not, we hope that you have some great fun barbecues planned, and happy meal times. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Thank you for listening to How to Unpicky Your Picky Eater. To learn more about achieving your child's feeding goals, check out Christine's website at foodologyfeeding.com. And be sure to tune in next time to How to Unpicky Your Picky Eater.